Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining. Nice to see you all, and thanks for joining our webinar today. My name is David Schlossberg, and I'm a business advisor for the Ferguson Alliance. And our firm's passion is helping family businesses grow and prosper. I'm here with Rob Ferguson and Brandy Merrick, both colleagues of mine in the firm. All three of us have worked multiple decades in family businesses as executives, shareholders, or board members. This webinar is a continuation of our Prosperity Plan series for family business. Today, we will be talking about the impact you have on your business as owners and CEOs. One of the family businesses I worked for some years ago had a dilemma. Their business had been growing steadily for some years. The founder, who had started his business some 20 years prior, was actually the sales guy. And he had built a reputation for himself as the foremost knowledge expert in his field. Now, he was highly respected in the industry where he operated. In addition, he had a unique product that was wildly successful in the niche market that he served. But he was really struggling to try to take the business to another level, where his vision for his company was to grow revenue and expand the market from what had been a regional Pacific Northwest-based nursery supplier to a global business, providing plants and genetics to many areas around the world where his niche market was developing and where potential new customers were just clamoring for his time and his company's plants and genetics. This gentleman knew where he wanted to take his company, but he was struggling to figure out, just how to do that. So Bob recognized that he needed somebody that could help him develop a strategic plan for growth. And Bob, he brought on a business advisor to work with him and his family. He had two adult children that had recently come back into the business, and together they sat down with their advisor and mapped out a 5-year strategic plan for revenue growth. And in that process, Bob recognized that in order to grow sales on a global level, he really needed to professionalize the sales function of his business and hire a sales leader. He knew that there weren't enough hours in a day for him to do it all by himself, so he took some time to recruit someone that could develop a professional global sales organization capable of exponentially growing revenue over the next 5 years. And so that's how I ended up working with this company. In just 5 years, we were able to build out an international sales team and put processes in place to handle taking the business to a whole nother level. And of course, it's not that simple, right? This took a tremendous effort and required a whole team of folks that had to be recruited, hired, and trained to be able to really achieve this aggressive plan for growth. And as a result, revenue grew 4 times in 5 years. And today, this company continues to be the global leader in that niche market that they serve. So where do you make the highest contribution to your company's success? Today, we're going to talk about a common phenomenon with entrepreneurs and business owners. It's called the Rainmaker's Dilemma. And Bob experienced that Rainmaker's Dilemma. And fortunately, he was able to figure out a way to overcome that over time. And in this presentation, we're going to show you how you can address this problem or this dilemma. But first, some quick housekeeping rules. Oops, sorry. As I go through the presentation, if you have any questions, please feel free to type those questions in the chat. Brandy and Rob will be monitoring the chat, and if it's appropriate and relative, they'll interrupt my presentation and we'll address your question. Otherwise, we'll wait to the end of the presentation and open it up to some discussion and conversation, and we can address those questions then. Thank you. So let's take a look at this diagram or graph. And let's use Bob's story as a case study, if you will. We've created this graph to illustrate where Bob made the highest contribution to his company's success. On the y-axis, over here on the left side of the graph, the higher up on this graph a task is, the more leverage is the skill of that person. Now, if you look at the x-axis along the bottom of the graph, this represents the length of time it takes for the task to have an impact on the business. So the tasks that take the shortest amount of time, you're going to see those on the farthest to the right of that x-axis. Those tasks that take longer to see much of an impact, and maybe years or months, end up on the left side of that x-axis. So we can now plot the tasks that an entrepreneur, like yourself perhaps, performs in your business. Bob, for example, he was good and very skilled at business development, sales activities, and client relationships, really building those relationships, developing them, as well as being a knowledge expert in his field. These are activities that win customers, and they develop close relationships with customers and keep customers happy. And we call this type of entrepreneur a rainmaker. Bob was the rainmaker for his company. Many entrepreneurs start their business this way and perform very well because, excuse me, these are the tasks that leveraging their skill set, let's leveraging their skill sets and have the shortest length of time before you can see an impact. But here's the challenge. Rainmakers typically grow their business quickly in the beginning, but as the business volume grows and as the number of customers grow, the rainmaker runs out of selling hours in the day, right? So the company plateaus and revenue flatlines. This is a period of frustration for most rainmakers as they continuously bump up against the limits of their personal capacity to sell. So now I'd like to introduce you to a different type of business owner. This owner we're going to talk about is called the architect. The architect is still good at selling and influencing others, but they invest those skills in building sales teams and marketing teams as well. These teams develop and implement the sales processes, sales funnels, and marketing programs, and all these marketing and sales funnels are interconnected, or I should say the marketing programs are interconnected with their sales funnel. That's the key. And these projects have a longer payback time, so they don't provide an instant gratification, of course, of a quick sale, but the architect has time now to focus on thinking about the business. And it's thinking about the business strategically. You have time to think about developing a sales and marketing funnel for your business, for example, time to develop and implement a sales process, and even you have time to develop your brand. So as an architect, you are still putting your time into the skills and activities that leverage your unique abilities. So they are on top of the funnel, or on top of the left-hand side of this, in this quadrant up here on the upper left corner. The only difference is you're moving from the right side, or that upper right quadrant, to the left side of the graph. Instead of personally selling, you're now using what you know about influencing people and selling to develop a highly effective sales team. So either you fill the role of sales manager trainer yourself, or you hire a sales manager to build your sales platform. In Bob's case, he hired a sales leader and a marketing leader, and together they helped build out a world-class sales and marketing machine that went to work developing and implementing new sales processes, as well as branding and brand messaging. Another part of this process for you to consider is the idea of understanding our individual, or having awareness of our individual unconscious competence, and then moving towards what we call a conscious competence. What does this mean? You, the owner, need to figure out what it is that you do unconsciously. What are the competencies that make you so successful? It's not anything you really think about. It's just what you do. In the case of rainmakers like Bob, who are really good at selling, they need to codify their sales process. Well, how do you do that? One way to do this is simply write down your sales process. Think about staying in the top of that 4-box quadrant and leveraging your unique skill set. But instead of looking for the instant gratification of making a sale or a very happy customer, which is what you've been doing for most of your career, invest those same skills in building your company so that the work can be done while you focus on the business. Effectively transitioning from a rainmaker to an architect. And so this path that you see here takes longer to develop than that of a rainmaker. The graph shows a slower rate of growth for the architect. But check this out, the owner, over time, the rate of growth is always accelerating and eventually surpasses that of the rainmaker. Those investments made in building a team and developing sales and marketing processes yield huge dividends over time. As a result, the architect's business starts more slowly, but avoids that plateau of the rainmaker. So that is why I would encourage you to start thinking about shifting your tasks more towards the architect tasks. Now you might say, hey, I like selling. I'm passionate about selling. That's the fun part of my job. And you know, it's okay to continue to do some business development, just like it's okay for you to sometimes eat some candy. Eating a little bit of candy is not going to severely impact your health, right? But if all we do is eat candy every day, it's kind of a problem for our health. So it's a good way for you to stay close to your customers, your key customers, by engaging in having conversations, and it gives you a good window into the business. But candy means it tastes good in the moment, but it undermines your health in the long term. Business owners who feel good when selling, but if they do this all the time, every day, they will undermine the value of their company, and you will undermine your sales team. So we're going to take a little poll here of our group. And the question is, are you a rainmaker or an architect? And I'd like you to take this poll, and we'll review the results together when it's completed. Okay. Everybody have a chance to answer? Okay, very good. Looks like everybody's in the transitioning mode, which is great. You guys are on the right path. Let us show you how to get there. So, do you want to transition from the Rainmaker to an architect? Obviously, the majority of you said yes. And so you start to do this, the first thing to do is prioritize your top left quadrant items. Those activities that are going to leverage your skills and are going to take a little bit longer for you to see an impact. What we want to do next is all other tasks that don't leverage our skills, that we're not particularly good at, or we hate doing, delegate away as many of these tasks as possible. This may take time for you to train others within your organization, or if you don't have the skill sets in your organization, maybe you will want to hire staff with the necessary skills to be able to learn and become proficient in these tasks that you've identified that need to be passed off to someone other than yourself. So, for example, hire and train salespeople to become the Rainmakers, or hire a sales leader to do that training for you. So we've talked about what a Rainmaker is and what is an architect, and a little bit about transitioning from one to the other. So now I'd like to share with you what we call 9 strategies to transition from Rainmaker to architect. Keep in mind that we use the terms Rainmaker and architect as if you are either or. However, I believe most of us fall somewhere in between, which was indicated by our poll results. So the first strategy for transitioning away from Rainmaker activities to the activities of an architect is to design a marketing platform that works while you sleep. Your marketing platform should be linked to your sales funnel, communicating with customers and leads alike, sending leads and opportunities into the sales funnel. So for example, automatic customer-centric email messages thanking customers after a purchase has been made or a service has been performed. Very simple, very basic, but you're automating your marketing activities. This is the first strategy that an owner should do, because the owner really understands their customer and they really understand what will get their customer to engage with the company. And the owner needs to actually set this up to be a hands-off activity so that they can have time to work on these other strategies. Number 2, document your sales process. This second strategy to document your sales process, this is probably, in my opinion, the most important process that you'll ever develop for your company. This goes back to that unconscious competence idea, in that many owners don't really know what it is exactly that they do to make a sale. They can't articulate it. But it involves, so in order to do that, it involves sitting down with your team and literally mapping out on a long sheet of paper or on a wall in a conference room some way to be able to write down step by step each step that's involved, from the point of time when a lead makes a contact with your company or you to when the sale is made and that product or service has been delivered. Sure, you have a special skill, that's secret sauce, but how do you teach that? So you do it by mapping out the step-by-step process you go through from a lead to close. It's time consuming, it's grueling, it's tedious, but it's the only way to really codify your sales process. And this way, it can be taught to someone else. Number 3, hire salespeople that are aligned with your values. Hire salespeople that share your values, because salespeople represent you, your company, and your brand. They are a reflection of you and your values. your selling style, your honesty, and your humility. It's also a great rule of thumb to look for salespeople that are good listeners, salespeople that are creative, and people who tend to be problem solvers. As Dale Carnegie once said, you can make more friends in 2 months by becoming genuinely interested in other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get other people interested in you. In other words, do more listening, do less talking. The fourth key is limiting complexity. Complexity comes from a number of different sources, oftentimes from selling too many things to a customer. As an owner, you have the unique ability and knowledge and experience to be able to offer many different products and succeed at selling many different services. You can do that. However, in order to train less experienced people, we need to simplify the complexity of the sale for them. So perhaps offering fewer products to more people can accelerate the salesperson's competency. Keep the sales process simple. The KISS principle, as they used to say. Good salespeople are most effective when selling. They're not when they're in front of a computer entering orders or following a cumbersome, complicated process. In a similar vein, limit the ability of your salespeople to customize their products or services. Customization is where you offer to change the flavor for every customer. This creates complexity and reduces efficiencies. Customization, combined with complex sales processes, leads to operational gridlock. Henry Ford was famous for saying, "You can have your Model T in any color you want, as long as it's black." Well, he knew that he wanted that to be able to master scale and be able to crank out as many cars as possible on that assembly line. Every time he changed something about that car on the assembly line, so adding a different color, for example, it added an exponential amount of complexity to his assembly line. So in this extreme example, it's basically saying complexity just makes it that much more difficult for your salespeople to learn the sales process. Number 6, set your salespeople up as experts. The way you position your salespeople is very, very important, especially in this as you're transitioning from the sales guy as the owner to the sales team. They should become product experts. This sets them up for success. You need to provide the product knowledge information and the training and the resources so that your salespeople are your product knowledge experts. This gives them the ability to establish credibility and trust with your customers. And number 7 is never attend a customer meeting alone. As you transition from your role as the Rainmaker super sales guy to another person, as you hand it off to that team or that other person, make sure that they are involved in all your sales conversations and meetings with customers and clients. There is nothing more frustrating for a salesperson than to feel left out of the conversation with a key customer. It may be unintentional on your part, it's just a habit, it's what you're used to doing. You know those situations where you pick up the phone when a customer calls, it's a key customer, you have a conversation and check in. When the call's over, you forget to follow up with your salesperson. So you're going to need to really set up some new behaviors and change some habits and start making a conscious effort to include your sales folks in all of your conversations and interactions with your customers, just at least keeping them in the loop. And again, never attend a customer meeting alone. You need to bring along your team. Not only are they developing a relationship with that customer, they're observing you, and they're going to pattern your behaviors and your style and your selling style. So it's just can't emphasize how important that aspect of this process is. And 8 is create customer testimonials. These strategies, which we just talked about so far, will ensure that your salespeople and your customer service teams will become rainmakers for you. The problem here is that your salespeople will never be able to do the job as well as you do. I mean, can you imagine? They don't have the passion that you have. Your name is on the company. It's on the company door, and you have years of experience and deep, deep expertise in your products and your services, which are all things that salespeople don't have, especially in the beginning. Going back to Bob as a case study, Bob was like a prophet in his industry. He had so much knowledge in his product and in the industry. There is no way that any of his sales folks could possibly rise to that level of knowledge that took a lifetime for Bob to achieve. But with the right tools, such as customer testimonials, you can give your sales folks that street credibility that they have yet to earn in order to be successful. And lastly, another strategy to help your salespeople be successful is to offer guarantees. Kind of a no questions asked guarantee will go a long way to build customer loyalty and trust with your sales team. What it costs you in the short run to write a credit will pay out in huge dividends in the long run. So when a customer, for example, you have a customer interface with your company and it becomes adversarial of a request for credit, you've immediately lost the trust of that customer, and they will become a dissatisfied customer and likely give your company bad reviews in the future. However, nothing builds trust for a salesperson as much as when a credit request turns into a positive experience for your customers. So in other words, you take an opportunity to make an opportunity. Turn that credit request into an opportunity to generate future sales. So in summary, 9 strategies to help you transition from Rainmaker to Architect. Let's just review this real quickly. 1, design marketing funnels that work while you sleep. Document your sales process. Hire salespeople that share your values. Number 4, limit complexity. Number 5, avoid customization. Number 6, set your salespeople up as product knowledge experts. Number 7, never attend a customer meeting alone. Number 8, create customer testimonials. And number 9, offer guarantees. So that concludes my presentation. If you'd like some help making changes, more information on this presentation, you can book a call with us, a free consultation. The information is here on this presentation, our phone number, our website. Please look us up. We'd love to hear from you. This presentation is being recorded and will be sent to you, so you have a copy of it that you can share with others in your team. So at this point in time, I'll let me just see if there's any questions in the chat.
Hi, David. It does look like you do have one question. Someone's asking, how long does the shift from Rainmaker to Architect take?
That's a great question. A really good question. It's hard to really say. It really depends on the resources you have and the complexity of your business and the size of your business. It could take, not very long if it's a small business and a small team. If it's a large business with a complex business model and a large team, to be able to develop processes and implement those processes can take a long time. In my personal experience, just trying to map out a sales process can take days or weeks because you have to include all the members of your team that have a hand in the sales process and get everyone's input. No matter how minute that detail may be, you can't overlook anything. So in general, I think it depends on how complex your sales process is and how large your team is will determine how long it takes. But that was a good question.
Do you have any best practices or tips for speeding it up?
That's usually the biggest challenge of implementing process change or any changes in any organization. The best way to speed it up is to be able to spend some time on the front end, creating a culture of change in your organization so that you limit the pushback or the resistance from the members of your team that you're involving in this process development. So getting people on board on the front end will really accelerate the ability to make these changes and transition from Rainmaker to architect.
Gotcha. Let me ask you this, and this is not in the chat, but when you were helping transition your Rainmaker into more of an architect and you were taking on some of those tasks, how was that for the customer? How did you help the customer in that transition?
That's a great question, Brandy, and that was probably one of the more challenging things to do because your Rainmaker has these long, close relationships, personal relationships. Sometimes they're at the family level. And I think the key is getting the Rainmaker to embrace the process and embrace this change. As I mentioned, that unconscious, those unconscious capabilities, also their unconscious behavior or their habit to just pick up the phone and reach out to these very important customers. Getting them to help themselves is really the key. So if you can, which is what I had to do, is sit down with the owner and say, look, in order for this to be successful, you've got to help me. And the way you do that is anytime you get a call, you have to be able to, unless it's a personal call, you've got to say, well, let me get my team involved in this. I'm kind of stepping away from the day-to-day and I'm really not up to speed. So you really need to talk to David or whoever. And that's the best way to do it, in my opinion.
Awesome, thank you. I think that rounds out our questions.
Well, great. Thank you much. Thanks everybody for the questions. Thanks for your time and attention. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be with us and to enjoy this presentation together. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye now.